Okay, well, I hope we have enough battery life for this one. Blue Max. This is not the original, but I think this is second edition GDW. And this is the cover I remember, which is what's weird is because some things seem a little different than I remember. So, first of all, I have very, very fond memories of this game. Obviously, it's not at all designed for playing solo, and there's nothing really to recommend it for solo play. Like Wings, which is similar in terms of plotted movement and everything, but is more detailed and complex, I kind of can see playing solo more. Maybe because I could never get people to play it opposed most of the time. We got a couple of plays, but I never got a campaign of Wings going. Whereas with this, it was very easy to get people in to play a campaign of it. But there's one major problem with the game, which is the rulebook is kind of a pain in the ass. It does not make a very good reference. It reads okay, you know, and it's not like you read through it, you kind of understand the game. You start to play it, and you've got to look up and find things you remember. And without case numbers, without a lot of white space, it just ends up very, very difficult. It's just columns of words, you know, and not tiny columns. It's not like your Quinto or anything like that. But when you don't give me that organizational presentation of the rules set into nice case numbers, I am going to have trouble, which is, of course, one of the problems I have with GMT, much as I love a lot of their games, is they tend to follow kind of this same, just bunch stuff together. So it's very easy for me to either forget rules or much more likely to think I know them, remember something, and not be able to find the particular rule that I want. GDW kind of perfected this style early. The game itself, you know some people don't like this map, but it's perfectly functional. And what do you need for an air combat map? Do you really need the Richthofen's War? Yes, I'm wearing curlers, okay. Don't worry about it. It's an experiment. Yeah, do you really need the Richthofen's War map? Does it add anything to the game? And you'll see the same with the later Blue Max, the most recent Italian version, I think, actually. It, presents this really pretty map on one side, but then some people didn't like that. It's too confusing and everything. This is exactly what you want for air-to-air combat. 20 plane counters, plenty of images on the plane. The combat is a little tedious, having to go through all the different modifiers. Some of them are hard to remember. You have to keep in mind one thing about the game is that you absolutely kind of have to have some trust in other players, because they're pulling random damage checks and recording the damage, and you have no idea what's actually happening to them. So there's plenty of opportunity for someone who's unscrupulous to just cheat this game. They could also, if you don't examine each other's order sheets, they could cheat on their orders. They could cheat on all kind of ways. Hopefully you're not playing with people like that. If you are, this sure ain't the game for you. What this does provide you with is, once you have someone who's familiar and comfortable with the rules, or a couple of people or whatever, who can look things up and help newer players or whatever, are very, very easy to absorb and join into type of simple World War I air-to-air combat. I find it far more enjoyable than things like Wings of War, more modern designs. I don't know why. Maybe just because I'm used to this, but it just feels like it covers things better. It's got these I, to me, the brilliance of these are the maneuvers you can do. You pick one, that's great. And you have to record it. There's some writing, there's no question of that. You have to record the damage to your planes. You have to record the choices and actions you take. You have to record special events that are in play. Of course, the game itself comes with some player aids, and you can photocopy these and use them instead. We had a bunch of them that were photocopied and we would erase and stuff like that. But, you know, for those of us who are more familiar with the game, we just sketched out our sheets. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but whatever. It's hard to tell whether or not this version came with enough useful counters. Obviously, I seem to be missing some counters that were supposed to come with it. Just the damage chits, but some others that didn't get matched by the particular like modified counter chits that I had. One of the great things about this is it has a moderate number of planes, not as many as something like Wings or whatever, but enough that there's some variability in it. I have some questions about some of the effects of some of the planes, like, you know, is the Falls engine really that much different from some of the other early rotary planes, or are they just not represented in this game? I mean, they're really, this is really kind of all filled with some of the later planes. And that's one of the other problems with it, is that it doesn't give you enough of the history, enough of the depth. I don't really care if it, you know, so for example, the Falls might not belong in the game. It may be too odd of a plane in some ways, something that there weren't a lot of. But it would be nice if it stretched back, you know, to like the early, the Fokker Scourge era and stuff like that. I don't know if the miniatures game gives you more plane types and patterns by getting rid of some of the counters, etc. That would be a good choice, especially since I made my own paper mache World War I planes, which turned out remarkably well, given that they're made out of paper mache. You know, the components are kind of lackluster in some ways, although the planes themselves are very pretty, but it's functional, it works. There's a little bit of tedium in the combat, especially. You know, maybe one of the most painful things is throwing the chits from the cup or whatever, but I think that works functionally just fine. It's actually the modifiers that I feel like I was not struggling with, but having to follow along. A little slower, a little more painful. And that'll get, I think, changed with the new edition. The big problem with the new edition that I suspect we're going to see, and I'll go into this when I cover that game, is that A, it doesn't have as many planes as this one does. B, it strictly limits you to basically 6 players, unless you have multiple sets. You could make, you could fudge around with that, but and see, it's missing the most important thing in the game for me, which was the campaign game. It's the campaign game of Blue Max that made it fun. Sitting down and playing one game of Blue Max, yeah, that's cool, you know, but the idea of like over the course of several months, playing through several months of World War I air combat and seeing the planes evolve, seeing your pilots improve, get shot down and killed, whatever, that all kind of generated something that I really, really enjoyed. A feeling that I haven't matched, honestly, with any other game that I've played. The closest thing to it is at Concept Expo. There's a guy who runs Down in Flames tournaments where you get to play the same pilots until they get killed or whatever. Unlike this though, there's not that steady progression of time. You're not evolving. You don't have to make certain choices like, yeah, I'm going to be a French pilot so that I get a chance at getting the SPAD 13 later on, or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I really liked this one. I am looking at the new one as kind of a, I wouldn't, from my opinion right now, my feeling is, I mean, when I bought it and I looked at it, I said, oh, shit, this is missing what I want. I have to get this copy, And I managed to find one that was cheap. Turns out it's cheap because it was missing a lot. I wouldn't have gotten it if it had said it was missing a lot. But maybe I would have, because maybe I thought the counters were in that one and I was getting like, this. But anyway, my feeling is that this version includes the stuff that makes the game worth having, and the newest edition doesn't. But the newest edition may end up having its own advantages where I'm not terribly unhappy to have both editions, especially since I'm missing significant counters for this one. I might be able to do a blending of the two and get a set that works where I use the combat system from that, which doesn't look too bad. Yeah, that's about all I have to say, I guess. Anyway, what kind of group is going to like this? Don't buy it. Don't buy it if you're only going to play it a couple of times. It is not worth it for that. It's a game that you want to play in that campaign, at least in my view. You want to play in that campaign setting, and you want to have it as kind of like a regular fallback. So like, let's say you have a group of 6 people, 8 people who get together and play, something heavy fairly regularly. Well, it wouldn't be a bad idea before somebody shows up to use this as a filler, or maybe at the end of the night or whatever. And by heavy, I mean, something that takes 8 hours or something. Throw a game of this in. It's pretty much light fun once you're familiar with the rules. But if no one's really familiar with the rules, if people are going to have to page through and look up a fair amount of the stuff, it's going to be a pain in the butt. And most of the special cases and everything, you should actually have memorized, because it's just too much of a pain with the rules, as they are. And I remember even the guy, John, who used to run the game, I remember every now and then we'd have pauses while he was looking stuff up, trying to find the rule that covered something. Some of them, like whether or not you can fire during spins, then just eventually making a decision. We went with it. But yeah, I mean, it turns out that it works out to be like just this real kind of beer and pretzels type thing when you're playing it. There's opportunity for people to really kind of look at it, especially if it's one plane versus one plane, but nobody plays it that way, I don't think. But there's a real opportunity to like be able to say, okay, I can move to this hex where no one can reach me, or something like that. To me, that feels like putting too much into what it really is, a beer and pretzels game. It takes too much thought, it takes too much effort to do that, and it's just not worth it. The fun in this one, that combat chart can range, when you get to the high values on the combat chart, it's not like you're guaranteed to pull a lot of chits, and even if you are pulling a fair number of chits, there's no guarantee that you do anything too impressive when you do so. It's just increasing your chances. So it's all kind of this critical based system where eventually real damage is going to wear someone out, but the biggie is, did I get, an insta-kill, or did I get hits on one of the things that's really easy to pick on, like the tail, and that can cause serious problems with it. You also get this kind of, in the campaign, this idea of, ooh, I've got a pilot who's not a novice anymore, or who's an ace, and I really want to save him. I don't want him to get killed anymore. So you end up breaking off from combats in order to go, try to escape behind friendly lines or something like that, or try to land and hope you make it through, simply because the game is at least as much about developing your character in the campaign style as it is about winning individual battles. Winning individual battles may not even matter. It's hard to tell. What I didn't like about the campaign was it's too simplistic. It's just dogfights. It's just, hey, set up a dogfight and, pick one of your pilots and use him. And he has a plane assigned to him and no one else can use that plane. And it's all kind of... it's sort of this artificial layer of something that places restrictions on who can play what, because there's only 2 or 3 Bristols in the game. So once people have claimed those, they're gone, and nobody, you're not going to have everybody flying the best plane or whatever. But here's the thing: what you don't have is some sort of idea of like, okay, we're deploying forces in an operational type manner. You're not going out and handling different types of missions like you do in the Richthofen's War campaign game. And oh boy, did I always want to play that, but I never had. My used copy of Richthofen's War didn't have the one scenario card that I really wanted the most, which I think was Balloon Busters on one side that I didn't really care too much about, but the campaign game information was on the other. And I just, I was never able to play Richthofen's the one way that I could see that being fun, because that's a game of geometry, entirely geometry, kind of the same way that this could be, where you're pre-planning and saying, I can't be hit here. Well, in Richthofen's, you say, well, the other guy can't set up for a good shot if I place here, and I can get one, and all kind of stuff like that. But that's a sequential game, and it just does not feel like air combat to me at all. It feels like I'm playing some kind of chess or something, like far too many of those old Avalon Hill games. Usually the ones that weren't straight sort of operational level ground combat were kind of interesting, but somehow Richthofen's failed entirely for me. Probably the air combat game I had the most fun with, but not the one I respect the most. Blue Max, that is. Richthofen's was never fun, and I have no respect for it at all. All right, let's send it up.